All right. Well, that's a bit of an overview of the story that has led up to what many consider to be the biggest miscarriage of justice in British history. May well turn out to be that. Welcome to the Outcast Creative channel. This is the home of the Outcast Creative. We do theatre productions, live stream productions, and acting classes based in North London on Monday night. The next one of which is this Monday coming above the Brewhouse and Kitchen in Highbury and Islington. No need to book, you can just drop in. Some of the actors from that class are actually in our production. I'm going to be bringing a couple of them in shortly. And it's their first time doing stuff on stage with us, but not their first time working with us. And I've also got some people who were victims of the scandal themselves, and a member of the Communication Workers Union with us, as well as somebody else who has been writing a book on behalf of a postmaster who was a victim of the scandal. I hate using the word victim, but unfortunately, I think it's appropriate because these people were victims of an absolutely terrible scandal and subsequent cover-up. Now, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And even better than that, if you could take a minute right now, those people that are watching, and please do a little post about this stream and share it on your social media and encourage others to watch it. This is all part of the contribution towards getting the message out there, both about the production and the scandal itself. But by without any further ado, I'm going to bring in a couple of the cast. First up, we have Dave Binder, who's just been to the hairdressers and has got a neatly groomed, very nice facade there. Yeah. So, Dave, welcome to the Outcast Creative channel for the first time. Doesn't feel like it's the first time for you because I've been working with you all week. And Josh is saying he wish he could send a super chat. You can't, Josh, because we're still not monetized yet, mate. Unfortunately, the channel, we've got enough subscribers, but we haven't got enough, not quite enough watch hours yet. We're not far off, but we're not quite there yet, mate. But that's one of my moderators. Dave, do you just want to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about you and what you're doing on the show and the main role that you're playing? I know you're doing more than one, but.
Yeah, so my name's Dave. I've been acting for about a year full time now, sort of flirted with the industry before that. And yeah, obviously involved in this play, False Accounts. Playing multi roles, as you said, but the main role is the sort of big bad auditor they get incentives based on the amount of convictions that they make. So they are very much happy to convict people and happy to find theft, basically, so that they can make money out of it.
Yeah. And how are you finding? I mean, did you know much about the scandal before you got involved in this show?
Before I got involved in the show, no, I honestly didn't know too much. I'd heard about it, but it's one of those things I never really looked into. But having watched the sort of panorama episode on it and seeing some of the testimonials on YouTube, I mean, you just can't believe it, really. You just can't fathom that sort of the post office, this sort of big trusted brand, that this could happen to so many people. It wasn't one or two. It was, as you say, it was hundreds in the end. So
yeah, could even go into the thousands at this rate.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I mean, it's just within such a short period as well. I'm 20 years, but it's really, in terms of how many people have been convicted, it's just crazy. And it's the sort of thing you might think about growing up, about becoming a sub-postmaster and running your own business, but you might be, you're just scared to do anything like that now, because you just never know. Really, it seems like such a normal thing to go into, normal business to be a part of, and it's literally ruined people's lives. I mean, it's shocking, really.
I don't think there's a massive queue of people as a result of this now wanting to open a nice little post office in a country village. I dare say that dream that ship has sailed. Well, I'm going to bring in the second of our actors today. The man whose beard arrives 10 minutes before he does. Ali Zhadi, good to have you on the show. There's a bit of an echo there, mate. I don't know if that's your device.
Yeah, it's my computer. Shall I try and log on my phone? Maybe that would be better.
There's a little bit of an echo, and I think we've got a bit of a time delay with you as well.
Okay, let me try it with the headphones, see if that helps, and then if not, I'll try and log on my phone. That should be better.
Okay, all right, yeah, pop those in for a sec. Let's I do love these technical nuances of running a Facebook live stream. Always entertaining. I think that's a little bit better, mate. Actually, that's good. Just to let you know, former postmaster Nicola Arch is in the house. She came to see the show twice last year. She is one of the many characters whom Postmaster 2 has some bits of. And then we also have Paul Lockwood. That's actually Maria Lockwood, who is also a former sub-postmaster.
Sorry, give me a moment.
Ali, no, you've got quite a bad lag at the moment. You're running slightly behind us, I'm afraid. Let me take you out for a second. I'm going to recommend you log in on your other device because it's very, very laggy. So I'm just going to remove him just for a second because we had a bit. This has happened plenty of times before. We'll bring Ali back in a second. He is playing Postmaster 5, who is the person who leads the charge of the 555 in the show. Right, we've got a couple of other people waiting to come in as well. So I'll bring them in just a second, but we'll try and get Ali back in and see if it's working. Let's just Ali, how's that?
So I'm on the phone now. Is it any better?
That's way better, mate. Just and you might want to log out of the other device.
Okay.
Because we've got two of you in the waiting room. I think I can only handle one of you at a time. Ali, do you just want to say quickly before I bring in the other guest, just tell us who you're playing and how you found it, sort of learning about Scandal for the first time, and try and keep your phone in one position if you can.
All right, I am Postmaster 5.
That's a great shot of your beard, but we need to see a bit more. As much as we do like your beard, and it is very impressive. There
Hollywood
we go.
shot.
Yeah. Right, Postmaster 5, which is an anagram or amalgamation or matador or metaphor of different characters. Mostly, I believe, Alan Bates and other characters.
There's definitely some Alan Bates in there, but it's not exclusively.
Yeah. What was your? Was that the answer?
How have you found playing the role? You know, what have you done for research? Just talk a bit about it.
All right, yeah. So I've been for research. I've been watching a lot of. I've watched all 3 of the Panorama documentaries on it. Googling stuff I don't quite understand, or following up on this stuff in the script that comes up, and looking stuff online. I've picked up a copy of this yesterday.
Oh, very good. Nick Wallace will be extremely happy about that.
You can buy me a drink for that afterwards, maybe. So just going online and asking you and reading the script and watching stuff on YouTube and Twitter. Yes, actually, a few days ago, I started following loads of postmasters, sub-postmasters on Twitter, and that actually made it more real for me. It's like, oh wow, these are actually real people.
Yeah.
And I feel quite a heavy responsibility now, actually, to try and do the role justice.
Good. Well, I mean, just quickly summarize, and this might be a quick answer, and it's fine if it is. What did you know about the Scandal before you got involved in this play? Anything?
No.
Never heard of it, right?
No.
And Dave, is that the same for you? You'd never heard of it?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. No, I'd sort of heard whispers. I remember seeing something on the news about the Royal Courts of Justice, and when they were all outside it, but it was one of those things you just sort of hear on the news, and I didn't sort of fully register it. As I said, it was more once obviously read the play and watched the Panorama documentary, and I've been watching some of the testimonials. I watched Mark Kelly's testimonial today, so
yeah. Well, that's that's great that you watch it. I'm going to bring Mark in next. John Sullivan said 2,400 is the latest figure estimated of people impacted by the scandal.
Wow.
I also think that there'll probably be a lot more on top of that who probably paid small amounts here and there, 100, 200 pounds, 150, 75, you know, constantly making up for minor horizon errors that were not their fault. I mean, you'll never really know the totality of it. Well, we've got two Marks with us, and we've got an extra guest that I wasn't sure if was coming, who I'll bring on last. But first of all, we've got Mark and Gizmo. Gizmo comes with a separate fee, so we're lucky to get him on. Mark Kelly and Gizmo, great to have you on, mate. And again, thanks so much for you know, coming on to talk about your experience.
You're welcome.
I can see one of Josh. We're not talking about films today. This one, somebody in the chat. We do talk about films on this channel quite a lot on TV. We're not talking about films today, Josh. We're talking about the post office scandal. Mark, your experience of this was pretty horrific. My two actors have both watched your testimony today. I saw it when you were giving it live.
Yes.
Actually, a lot of our cast from last year all watched it, and everybody was talking about the guy with the dog in rehearsals. Because you did have a profound impact on our team. I mean, just don't tell us the whole story, because I mean, I know it's a big story, and we'll be here. But in concise terms, you were a postmaster for about 3 years, but you're also a bit of a computer whiz.
Yeah,
and you were
I
good at spotting the bugs, right? That were and
yeah,
things.
I
That were
got a
going
computer science degree from Cardiff University,
right.
and my mum, due to an armed robbery and some losses she had a mental breakdown.
Right.
So we decided, me and my wife, to take over the post office in 2003, so the community wouldn't lose a very important office in the area. And we had two armed robberies ourselves in 2003 and 2004. And in 2004, the system generated a minus £4,000 figure after the post office and the police counted all the cash and stock.
Right.
So from there, I thought, well, there must be something wrong with the Horizon system, because how can you have a minus 4,000 afterwards?
Yeah.
So I was looking for some errors, for bugs, and in December 2005, I found a bug on Horizon with the smart post system, and I reported it to post office and Fujitsu directly, and we went back and forth. Turned out all the offices in the country was affected by this bug. Post office would not send a memo view to all the office to tell them about the bug and how to avoid it. And I said, well, if you don't do anything, I will publicize it. And then before you know it, after I gave that threat, I had a sort through in my office, a surprise audit by a retail line manager, and my office was closed.
And am I right in thinking that at some point with your back and forth with the post office, I don't think threatened's the right word, but you demanded that the post office and Fujitsu took action about it. They didn't take any action about the bug. You said you were going to go public, and then the next thing you know, suddenly you had a massive shortfall in your branch.
Yeah, correct.
I find that extremely unusual and a bit of a coincidence, I have to say. And I'm not a man prone to conspiracy theories, but, you know, when we hear the things we're hearing at the public inquiry, and let's be honest, the testimony today just beggared disbelief, really. I don't know what planet Rod Ishmael was living on, but certainly wasn't Earth. And, you know, I mean, do you think that was deliberate? What's your view on that?
I did say in the interview that I said there must have been some remote access. I said you can access the system, and my legal team, because I was under the mental health section then, they said, well, if you're going to proceed with false accounting and fraud, we will use, because I documented the bug.
You screenshotted the bug, didn't you? You screenshotted the bug, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, all the steps. We will use that as defense to say your system is not reliable. I can't say the word, whatever it's called. So they then sort of dropped it. They were at the time trying to put pressure on me by like saying, well, if we won't charge you, we'll charge your wife, who at the time was on a wife visa, and if she gets a criminal record, to get deported.
Yeah. Okay. And this was your, I believe your marriage broke down as a result of this.
No, my marriage is still fine.
Okay, good, good. Yeah. All right, excellent. Okay. Well, I'm pleased to hear that, because there's a lot of postmasters whose relationships did not survive.
Yeah.
And you know, this is the sort of thing that will tear it apart. Now, you had an ally in the form of the Communications Workers Union, another Mark Kelly, another Mark Baker, who we'll bring in now. Mark, welcome to the stream. Thanks for giving up your Friday night and instead of going clubbing, coming to be with us for the evening. How did you come to know about Mr. Kelly's case? How did that all come about? So you were part of this the Communication Workers Union, but am I right in thinking you're also a former sub-postmaster? Is that correct?
Well, I'm still a sub-postmaster up until the 29th of July. Then I won't be. I came across Mark before we had set up the postmasters branch in the CWU. I also held a role in the National Federation of Sub-Postmasters, and that's where I came across Mark. Mark was a part of a informal Yahoo group. It was before the days of
God,
Facebook.
I remember those. Yeah, I remember Yahoo groups.
We called it the list. It was a list of names of postmasters, and this is the first time ever that sub-postmasters were able to talk to each other outside of organised meetings. So we could talk socially every single night. We'd fire off emails about what was giving us problems. It turned into a self-help group, and it scared the living daylights out of the hierarchy of the Federation, as well as the post office, because horror of horrors, postmasters were talking to each other. And we were sharing and exchanging information. And Mark's story cropped up one evening in an email exchange. And I mean, I tried to do my best to help him. The difficulty for me, because I was still a serving senior official in the Federation, I had to abide by their protocols. And one of the protocols was I had to stick to helping postmasters in my region, which was the Southwest. Mark was in the Wales region. He had his own executive officer, who I gather wasn't being particularly helpful. So we did what we could for Mark, but at some point through the proceedings, we kind of lost contact with Mark. And I think that's because he had reached a point where he was not being able to cope with things, and he didn't want to involve his colleagues, which is understandable. But I did wonder whatever happened to Mark, because he was an enormous help to our group, because he had so much technical knowledge about computers and social media and that sort of thing. So yeah, we tried at the time. We knew very little about what we now know about the Horizon system, and we just did our best to try and support him.
Sorry, just unmuting my microphone there. So, in terms of you lost touch with each other. When did you reconnect? Would that be sort of when the 555 happened, or?
Yeah, it was in the Horizon litigation in the High Court. That's when I first saw Mark after a long period of absence.
Right.
Mark's trying to say something. He's on mute, I think.
Mr. Kelly, did you want to chip in there? No, he's not saying anything.
Right.
Mark Kelly, can you still hear us? Oh, we can't hear you, Mr. Kelly. I don't know if somehow you're muted, I think. Not sure why. We could hear you a minute ago. Don't know what's happened there. Mark, shall I pop you out the stream while you just fiddle with your technicals? And Mr. Baker, you can stay there. Sorry, I'm going to use your surnames. It sounds very formal, but it's going to get very confusing otherwise. So I'm just going to put Mr. Kelly back in the green room for a second and give him a chance to log back on. So I mean, this is a very complex, long, horrible story that really is. I know there's a 6-part drama being made by ITV at the minute. It's probably more worthy of a feels like it should be 3 seasons with 10 episodes in each, and each episode covering a decade, because this thing has gone on for the best part of from 99 until the present day. And you were telling me before we came on, it's not like someone's gone in and said, okay, well, we've got to completely fix Horizon, and they fixed it and it's all tickety-boo. You're telling me that you're still getting people banging on your door. It's still not working properly. And they've just been paid another $1 million to fix a whole load of bugs. Can you elaborate a bit on what's going on now?
Yeah, well currently the Post Office, following the Horizon litigation, they wanted to sever their relationship and dependence on Fujitsu as quickly as they could. And they're developing this new point-of-sale kit, of which postmasters have been told very little about. Allegedly, there are some serving sub-postmasters on the working group that have been working with Post Office technicians as to how to develop this system. But at the moment, we know precious little about it. Anyway, it was due to launch fairly soon. And it was supposed to transform the way the Post Office does business for postmasters and customers and the clients. But it's all gone wrong, as IT projects tend to do. And they don't see they'll be able to get it up and running for at least 12 months. So they were forced to extend Fujitsu's contract. And they've had to pay them over £1 million to stay relying on them for maintaining the IT system of the Post Office. Consequently, Horizon's not been fixed. It still goes wrong, and it's still throwing up errors. Thank goodness that it's easier now to prevent a postmaster from being held responsible for those errors. And if they're a member of the CWU, who are now representing postmasters, they weren't in the early days. But they are now representing the postmasters. So anyone who joins the postmasters branch will get the support and help they need to push back at the Post Office to say, no, I'm sorry, there's a court judgment against you, and the responsibility for proving who was responsible for the error in my branch is yours. And we help them to have the confidence to be able to do that. And I'm pleased to say that since that judgment came back in 2019, I haven't had any members of our branch put money in the till because of a Horizon error, and long may that continue. So we're saddled with this Fujitsu and their rotten system. We're saddled with them for at least another 12 months. So that's not good news.
I mean, what's the plan after? So, I mean, they obviously want to sever ties with Fujitsu, I guess, because the whole thing's been an embarrassing debacle. Who's coming into, what are they doing? Getting IBM in, or who's coming in?
I'm not sure who they're partnering with. All we know, we keep being told, it's a cloud-based system. Well, that doesn't mean that much. We don't know who the contractor is. We don't know what the kit is, what it looks like. They're staying tight-lipped about sharing any advanced information with the wider network. Obviously, there's a few hand-picked people who have been brought in on the project, but at the moment, we don't know how different this new system's going to be to Horizon. And if they don't share information with more postmasters, I don't see how they're going to get a decent cross consensus from people that have got to use this system as to whether or not it's actually going to change things. I get very nervous about the Post Office's penchant for dealing with small niche groups that they've handpicked. No disrespect to the people involved, but they have been singled out and handpicked. and I wonder what the motivation is for them doing it. They should really be having a much bigger, a much wider spread of postmasters involved in the development of this new system.
I mean, one of the things that's I'm going to try and bring Mr. Kelly back in because we've got him. Mark, can you say something so we can see if we can hear you?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can. Very good. Okay, fantastic. Just one thing I'll just say to Mr. Baker's last comment before I come back to you, Mark, and then we're going to bring Alid in shortly. One thing that's really struck me about the inquiry, and I've watched every witness so far, all of it. I have it on in the background when I'm working constantly. I'll pause it and replay it when I want to see something again, which has been pretty frequent. Is you had a huge number of people in what I would call fairly technical positions where a working knowledge of software systems and bugs and things of that nature was a pretty core component of that job responsibility. Yet you have this raft of senior employees, both at Fujitsu and Pole, who clearly were not qualified to hold the positions that they had. And I find that quite incredible that then people depended on them for advice to say that the system was sound, where they weren't really, first of all, they weren't the architects of it, the ones I'm talking about. They were more like the overseers who had fairly high-paid, cushy jobs. I'm really not sure why. I mean, that sort of beggars belief. You got any comment on that, Mark? Because that's certainly how it's coming across to me. Not with everybody, but with quite a few people.
Which Mark?
Either one.
For me, I noticed a lot of the people got promoted instantly. They were like retail line manager, then they become area manager, then they become in Chesterfield or other places. They didn't get promoted because of their skill set. They got promoted, how I looked at it, by as a job within the company.
Right.
You're right, Lance, that there was precious little technical knowledge amongst the people who were making life-changing decisions on postmasters. And it was always a source of frustration for someone like myself, who played a representational role, who had to step in and support a postmaster at a contracts meeting where the determination of their contract to carry on being a postmaster was being determined. And I ended up getting admissions from virtually every single contracts person I appeared before, saying that they don't really have any technical knowledge. Now, I'm not qualified in IT technology, but I built up a knowledge. I did have access to people who were professionals. I had friends in where my post office is. They're involved in military IT, and I would talk to them about Horizon. I was also elected as a county councillor and was put in the cabinet of the county council. One of my portfolios was the IT department, so I had access to all the IT county professionals, and I spoke to them, and I gleaned a lot of knowledge, which armed me to go into the meetings with the post office and make a case that perhaps it was a Horizon equipment at fault. And I just sat there at this meeting talking technical reasons why I thought the postmaster's kit had gone wrong. And I just watched the contracts manager's eyes glaze over. He had no idea what I was talking about. And I realized that I'm just wasting my time trying to defend my member against someone that doesn't understand the language I'm using. And that really used to annoy me. So, yeah, you're right. There are a lot of people involved in this scandal who were not qualified to be doing the job that they were doing, especially on the technology side.
Yeah, yeah, that's certainly a recurring theme. I mean, I was watching the evidence of Rod Ishmay today, and the only other time I've heard the name Ishmay is in association with the Titanic. Strange that parallel that really struck me. His evidence beggared belief. The way that he tried to make out that he'd done an objective report, but clearly stated that his brief to do the report was not to be objective. And I found that contradiction quite bizarre. And then also, for somebody with his level of experience, the fact that he kept saying, well, that would be the job of this team or that team to make this decision for me. I'm sorry, that just came across as utter nonsense. And I think there's a lot of lip service going on along the lines of, I don't want to go to prison, so I'd better answer this question like this, if you know what I mean. But anyway, just before I bring our next guest in, just going to go to a few of the comments here. People are asking if anybody watched the Post Office conference last night. Ali, stop eating your microphone. And then Carl Flinders, who, as we know, is from Computer Weekly, has stated the Post Office has tried to dump Fujitsu a few times and failed. So it'll be interesting to see what unfolds. Absolutely. We've got John O'Sullivan in the chat, who I'm sure most of you know. Paul Lockwood, this is actually Maria Lockwood, who's a former sub-postmaster in the chat. Nicola Arch, who came to see our play last year, not once, but twice, possibly 3 times, actually. And then we've got various other regulars of the Outcasts in here as well. Guys, thank you all for coming in. There's 24 people watching. Do like, subscribe. And if you can share the stream right now on your social media so even more people come in, that'd be great, because this is a very important topic. So there's a couple of books out on the subject. In fact, there are 2, because there's Nick Wallace's one, which is this one, which I believe Ali's got a copy of and has been using as a research tool. I actually didn't get my hands on one of this until I'd written most of the play, but it was certainly very useful, dotting the I's and crossing the T's. Pretty soon, there's going to be another book out about the scandal. Sorry, I should have had this closer to hand, which is our play, which is this is the early version, and we'll have that at the theatre. So that's the first time actually in my career that I'm actually going to have a play ready to go when we're performing as well, which will be interesting. But there's another couple of books coming out as well, mostly penned with somebody else's help, about the postmaster's personal journeys himself. And one man who is working hard to get this book that he's been working on with somebody a larger release around the country, and I've been talking to him about that in the last 24 hours, is Alid Gwyn Job. Hello. Did I pronounce your name correctly, sir?
Yeah, it's Job, Lance.
Okay. I'm not brilliant with accents, so you'll have to forgive me. Now, you're working with a former sub-postmaster, is it Noel Thomas?
Noel Thomas, yeah. I've just basically completed launched a book, a Welsh language book. Here it is. It's called Llythyr Noel, which in English means Noel's letter. So that's being sold at the moment in Wales, and it's doing quite well so far. And I'm now working on an English language updated version, which is going to be called The Stamp of Innocence. And as you said, Lance, I've been in discussions with you to see whether or not I can find a publisher for this particular book, because I'm sure this particular tale will be of interest to a wider audience outside Wales itself. And so that's where we are at the moment. Right.
Okay. Could you just tell us a little bit about Noel's story? I mean, I know they're all pretty similar, but is there anything in particular about his that kind of has a unique aspect to it, or anything? I am vaguely familiar with it, but perhaps for the benefit of the panel and people watching.
Yeah, I think Noel was among the first cohorts, the first 7 who were caught up in all this, and amongst the first to be sent to jail. He was sent to jail for 9 months for false accounting.
And how old was he when he went to prison?
60.
Right. That's and that's not a good age to suddenly fight. You've been you've been a hardworking, law-abiding citizen all your life,
Absolutely. An employee of the post for 40 years as well, in different capacities as a postman, and then a local postmaster, a local councillor as well. And then, you know, he was basically kind of fitted up and sent to jail for 9 months.
I can think of a few other people who work for the post office that should have that experience also, but we won't go there.
No, at this stage, no. But it's basically the 16-year tale of Noel and his family trying to basically clear his name. This went on between 2006 up until 2021, when he was finally cleared by the appeal court. So it's a 16-year journey, if you like, of one postmaster's personal hell, and how he managed to basically get through it with the help of his family and his community.
Right. I mean, I'm sure that's going to be a pretty powerful story. Do you know if Noel is represented in the ITV drama? Did they speak to him about that at all?
Yes, I think he is. But from what I gather, he won't have much of a prominent role for some reason. But he will be featured there in some capacity. Yeah, for sure.
So that'd be like an actor playing him effectively.
Yes. Yeah.
I did meet the producers of that show when Nick's book was being launched officially, and they did give me a little bit of background about what the shape of the show was going to be, and I'm sure that'll be another platform that will hopefully bring this to a much wider audience. Because when I say post office scandal to people, two things immediately follow that statement. One is either no, I haven't heard of that, and then I have to sort of explain, and then if the second answer is, oh, I've heard something about that. Yeah, isn't that all finished now?
Yeah.
And then I have a second explanation, which I have ready, usually followed by a flyer for the play if it's on at the time. But it's unbelievable how many people still don't know about it.
Yeah.
And if they do, they don't know the scale because I said to somebody who I was building a model of London Bridge with the other day in his kitchen, I digressed slightly, and he was asking me about what the play's about. And I said, well, it's about the biggest miscarriage of justice in British history, which was that statement comes from one of the people giving the impact statement evidence. And he said, oh, well, I think there's quite a few competitors for that title. And I said, yeah, okay, tell me who else. And that conversation was quite short at that point, because we couldn't find another case where the implications were so big, because it's not just about the postmasters being treated wrongly. It's about the law being broken flagrantly, just everywhere. Not just by people in the post office, but lawyers too, who should have known better. Why did Susan Crichton suddenly leave Post Office Limited when she did? And look at what was going on around that time and ask those questions.
I think as well, Lance, one of the kind of key issues here is that you've got 4 different governments implicated in this, so the actual import of this scandal involves so many senior politicians, and at this point in time they really haven't had their collars felt as much as they should, because we all know who basically insisted that this Horizon system had to go ahead was Tony Blair. And he was actually advised back in 1999 that there were bugs on the system, that he shouldn't go ahead. I mean, there's written communication to that direction, but he insisted that he had to go ahead because he wanted to court Fujitsu and the Japanese government. So the issue is, surely the inquiry will have to call him at some stage as the basic instigator of all this absolute scandal.
Oh, that'll be the second time that he's been at an inquiry after the case for war and WMDs and all that. I mean, that man's resume is becoming quite extensive with cluster Fs, I might say. What's the I want to see if my actors have got some questions for our guests as well, and I'm sure they have. Before I throw to them, if I could ask each of you, what is the outcome that you want to see at the end of this? I know what my answer is to it, but I'm not as personally invested in this. I didn't go through it. But perhaps going to Mark first, who I think has been on the sharpest end of the people here. Mark, what do you want to see at the end of the inquiry? What are you hoping for?
If you're talking to me...
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Kelly. I do apologise. I've got two Marks in the house. I keep forgetting.
Yeah. There's two things I want to see from it. Mostly is I want the Police Evidence 1999 Act to be changed. So the computer evidence is not classed as absolute. And also I want the candle law to be enshrined into law. Could
you elaborate on that? What that is for those of us that are not familiar?
Well, the candle comes from the Hillsborough inquiry, and from that it says that the public authorities, like the post office, to the police and things, has to give two records. They cannot like outspend people. They have like a set budget and things like that. It's like 20 different points.
Right, that's interesting. And I mean, in terms of okay, so that's one thing. Mr. Kelly, anything else? I mean, have you personally received compensation for your losses?
I received a small compensation from the first 555 payment in December 2019.
Right.
But I haven't received anything after that. One being because I refused to receive anything else due to how all the other groups were getting treated at the time.
Right.
And so I haven't had anything after that.
Yeah, which seems quite right. Maybe we can get the difference from Tony Blair's bank balance, perhaps. I don't know. Mr. Baker, what are you hoping to see? Maybe what do you actually think will happen at the end of the inquiry?
Well, yeah, goes without saying that I want to see all the victims properly compensated and quickly. I think there's far too many excuses being made about speeding up that process of paying compensation.
Yeah.
The government are clearly, because this is going to come off of the budget of the business department, they're clearly protecting their budget here, and they're trying to pay the compensation on tick, if you like. They're trying to do it as slowly as possible. But as it's already been pointed out, people are of a certain age in this scandal now, and some of them, sadly, are succumbing to illnesses, mainly brought on by their involvement in this scandal, and they're dying younger than they needed to have done, and they're not going to see the justice. So that needs to be dealt with pretty damn quickly. Then what I would like is for the inquiry to establish what criminal offences have been committed by people on the post office side of this scandal, and Fujitsu and lawyers. Because to me, and I've heard other lawyers repeat this, there are prima facie cases here of perjury and false accounting in some cases on their part, and malfeasance in public office.
Right.
All of those are criminal offences. I also believe there may be breaches of the Postal Services Act, which in itself can bring about a punishment. So this is what I would like the inquiry to establish. And like Justice Fraser did, I'd like to see Sir Wynne prepare some papers for the Crown Prosecution Service or the CPS, whoever it is that puts these prosecutions into place, because there have been offences committed. They were quick enough to take prosecution action off by themselves against postmasters. So I think it's only right now that the establishment identifies what offences have been committed and by whom, and that they prosecute those offences. That's where I'd like to see the inquiry get to. And the ultimate one is, and I'm just struggling to understand what recommendations Sir Wyn's going to come up with, but how on earth is he going to put forward recommendations that will be adopted by the government and the Post Office that ensures this sort of thing can never happen again? I keep saying this to anyone that asks me. The biggest failing in all this, and was a contributing factor in many cases, was there never ever was any independent representation for postmasters throughout all this. They were left on their own. The representative body at the time washed their hands of them and walked away, looked the other way. And if there had been an independent union running the show, like there was for the Crown Office workers, I'm sure that whistles would have been blown long ago, and we wouldn't be seeing half the problems people are facing have occurred. Incidentally, I did step in and help Noel Thomas. I was approached a long time ago. I thought it was someone from Computer Weekly, but speaking to them, it probably wasn't. I've got a feeling it may have been some acquaintances I made in BBC South Today, who had obviously listened to a call for help from Taro Now, the Welsh TV station, who were looking for people to talk to them about Noel's case. And I said, well, I'll talk to them about it, because I had some empathy with Noel, because he was a fellow county councillor. And I thought, there's no way a county councillor is going to steal money. It just, I couldn't reconcile in my head that someone with a post office business and the position of trust he held with his community as a county councillor was going to risk all that by stealing money. It just, and the fact that where he was located was a very rural area, and I had incidences of Horizon installations in rural areas falling victim to very poor broadband connectivity and electrical connectivity, which would cause Horizon to miscalculate. And I got the evidence in the end of that actually happening, and the subsequent evidence that we've seen in the trials has proved that hardware failure, connectivity issues is a contributing factor to Horizon shortfalls just as much as the software glitches were. So I approached Taro Now, and I was the mystery person from the NFSP who went on that show. And I knew it caused a huge scare within the post office, that someone from their trusted organisation, the NFSP, was spilling the beans about Horizon. And unfortunately, the recording of the show has been destroyed now, because Taro Now is a defunct TV station, and I think all their archives went. But my involvement remains in the records of the post office, and I saw it pop up on the screen today in the evidence that was being shown on screen of the post office getting very alarmed that someone was talking about Horizon from the Federation, and this has got to stop. So it came to naught because no one picked up on it. It was a Welsh language TV program, and it didn't get that much attention. And of course, in those days, everyone believed computers could do no wrong, except those who knew that perhaps they could go wrong.
Thanks very much for that very insightful answer. Alid, perhaps the same question to you, speaking sort of partly on Mr. Thomas's behalf. What are his hopes that the inquiry is going to produce and long term?
Well, I think Noel, for all the trials and tribulations he's had to endure, he's surprisingly unvindictive about everything that's actually happened to him. I think he's a person of huge Christian faith. So that's been a really important part of his resilience in all this, and I think he wants to see justice served. I don't think he's actually wanting to see people to go to prison. I mean, his approach is that these people who actually instigated these crimes should actually pay in their pockets, and that would be the main kind of justice he wants to see. He wants to see these people actually clobbered in their pockets for years, possibly, for what they what they actually sort of forced him and the postmaster to go through. But I mean, that's his personal take on it. And as I said, he's a very forgiving, charitable man, and perhaps Noel's got a different take on it than other people have. But that's the way he wants to see justice being served. Because, as you say, money and power is the god of these individuals, and he wants them to actually face the kind of punishment that would actually really hurt them, rather than prison sentences.
That's interesting. I mean, I think money would be good. I have to say that Mark hit the nail on the head for me, where he said, if all these resources were available to go after sub-postmasters on what was basically spurious evidence, and in fact, in many of the cases, as judges stated, there was no evidence presented of theft. How can these same resources of the wheels of justice not be turned onto these people where there is absolutely loads of evidence of them lying, covering things up, breaking the law, and all the rest of it? To me, that's it. That's the only thing that's going to restore my faith in the institutions of this country. I'm going to give my actors about 90 seconds to come up with questions for you. Whilst they do that, we're just going to see what they've been up to on this short video, and you can see how much fun it is when you don't have enough money for your very low budgeted play about the Horizon Post Office scandal. It is to rehearse with actors in your kitchen. There you go. That's what we've been doing for the last 4 weeks. We're actually moving to a bigger rehearsal space next weekend. I can't believe it. I feel like we're going to be going up in the world. So, Ali, as someone who's playing one of the postmasters, I'll give it to you first. Do you have a question for any one of our guests, or all three?
Yeah. Mark Kelly first. I saw your public inquiry thing earlier today with Gizmo. So yeah, I'm just wondering, how are you feeling now? How are you feeling now compared to before? How are you?
Up until the up until December 2019, I always felt guilty. I always felt I was partly to blame for all this, and I had tried to commit suicide from it, but never succeeded because my other friends like Annabelle in Canada and stuff talked me out of it. But after that ruling, a part of me, the dark side, subsided, and now I'm starting to feel I'm not responsible for it, partly. And it might sound stupid, but that's how I felt for all those years, because from 2006 to 2010, it was complete darkness for me. I can't remember any of that really. It goes under the Mental Health Act. And then when I became more aware in 2011, I heard about CMO got sent to prison and things, and I felt maybe I caused it at the time. But I'm in a better.
Is that because that you found one of the bugs and you reported that bug, and you feel maybe that somehow in turn led to other postmasters being in prison?
Yeah, you got hit on the head, and at the time, the post office said to my my lawyer said to the post office, if you went to court, they would make this bug public. So the post office said, okay, we're going to just hold off, and they just left it. Didn't tell me they're dropping the case, nothing for years.
Well, look, let's try and torpedo that for you right now, Mark. In my view, and I'm sure Dave and Ali are going to agree with me, you're a bloody hero, mate. You're not responsible for anything.
No.
You're a hero. You're one of the people who stood up to the post office and actually had the technical wherewithal to try and hold them to account and help other people and stop them from going to prison. You were one of the people that did that, and there were not many people that did that. So you should be proud of yourself.
I love the fact.
Proud of yourself.
Sorry. I love the fact that you argued with them, that you stood up. You were like, no. You know, on many occasions, you argued with them, and they were like, okay, fine, and you you talk them out of. So you were actually, you know, very strong to do that. So I'm glad that you're feeling better, and I hope you do feel better. And
take on board what I said, because that's what you should hold on to. You should be proud of yourself, and you became part of the 555. You made a contribution towards bringing this rotten institution down. And Nicola Archer's agreeing with me there. She's normally quite quiet, Nicola. She doesn't normally say much, but she's agreeing to that comment.
That's why I joined the 555. When we heard on the radio, we thought it might have, if the case got thrown out, they might go after me then. We thought we had to do it.
Yeah, and I listen, I understand why, because, you know, you had a mysterious shortfall once you tried to bring them to account of that. Were you, Mark, were you there at the very first 555 meeting when you all met in that kind of cold church hall? Were you one of the ones at that very first meet? You came later?
I came later in 2017. It was on the radio. They did
right.
They're looking for join the group.
Dave, your question for our guests.
Well, I was going to ask the same question actually, but that's fine. It's good to hear that you're feeling better now. That was sort of my main question all along. I don't know, maybe Mr. Baker can help. I mean, what point? It's quite a loaded question, but at what point was because it seems to me, as I understand it, that a case they obviously built this system on the cheap, basically to maximize profits, kind of standard capitalism as we know, and then obviously, so it wasn't intentional, as far as I understand, to cause the problems, but obviously once the problems started arising, they tried to just sort of burn, as you say, shred the evidence and things like that. Was there a particular sort of turning point when that started to happen, when they realized that they were in the wrong, and rather than sort of address it, they almost tried to just sort of, you know, keep it hidden?
I think your question is,
was it when the meeting
started? Your question is, at what point did a conscious cover-up begin? Is that a fair summation?
Yeah.
Okay. Mark, any opinion on that?
I would say from the outset, they knew the system was going wrong. If you follow the evidence that's been presented to the inquiry thus far, the Prime Minister of the day, Tony Blair, was told that this system is not fit for purpose. But he overruled everyone and said, well, go away and make it bloody well work. And so when you say something like that to the post office, who are completely scared of their government masters, that's what they tried to do. And they made a complete hash of doing it. And so when they realized that they were engaged thereafter in firefighting problems that Horizon was generating, they moved heaven and earth to keep that under wraps. And anyone who came close to trying and revealing a problem, those people were dealt with. I mean, Mark just highlighted that he stood up to them and he pointed out that it could go wrong. And the next thing you know, he had a bad audit and they hoofed him out. Well, the same thing happened to Mike Rudkin, who held a very senior position in the Federation of Sub-Postmasters. And he went on that visit, which is now well documented. He went on that visit to the Fujitsu test center or headquarters in Bracknell.
Yeah.
He was on an escorted visit around, and he bumped into this engineer who probably didn't exactly know who he was, and revealed to Mike Rudkin that, oh yeah, I can lifetime enter a sub-postmaster's cash account and I can alter figures and then I can disappear and hey, he won't know about it. And then suddenly realized he'd gone too far. But Mike remembered that and he started to talk about this to us other executive officers around the executive council. And the next thing I know, Mike suddenly started to have unexplained losses in his branch. He was just treated like any other postmaster. He was suspended and they tried to terminate his contract. I represented him on his first hearing and got him off, but it didn't work with the second time round because they came for him again. And then actually, they blamed his wife and arrested her and prosecuted her. Mike was got rid of.
Is he part of the 555 as well?
I think he is. Yes. Yeah.
Right.
And his wife's had her conviction overturned already, so she was in the early stages. So yeah,
that's a bit of a. I mean, it would be really interesting to kind of canvass anyone who was on that side of the fence, who had some sort of influence within the hierarchy, be it through the National Federation of Sub-Postmasters or held some sort of senior position or had contact with senior individuals who brought up an issue, and then suddenly, lo and behold, they suddenly had big losses in their accounts. What a weird coincidence.
Mm.
I didn't know that before this. That's something.
No, I didn't know that before today either.
I'd like to get a picture about, was that one of their methods of keeping this under wraps? They clearly trusted the Federation to keep quiet. And Rod Ismay gave a big hint about that in his evidence today, because he said that the certain officials from the Federation came to his headquarters in Chesterfield, and he showed them all sorts of things that he had recently denied access to from the expert witnesses that a judge in a court had instructed to go and get the information they needed from Chesterfield. And Rod Ismay took umbrage at that and did everything he could to stop them from having unfettered access to his accounting systems. Yet they were happy to share that information with the NFSP. So I think if anyone within the NFSP was to step out of line, they would have no hesitation in dealing with them in the same way as they would deal with someone like Mark Kelly.
Yeah.
So,
well, at the time, I was a branch secretary for the Swansea branch, and my wife said that put a big target on my back because I said I was going to expose it. And another person that was got made a sample of was Lee Castleman.
Lee Castleman, yeah.
He got the court, and it just ruined him financially.
But when Lee got first into trouble, when he was first in trouble, he wasn't a member of the NFSP, but he immediately tried to join, and he filled in his application form, and he paid his subscriptions a year in advance. He sent the postal orders in, and when the General Secretary of the day, Colin Baker, who's already given evidence to the inquiry, when he realised that Lee Carson was coming into membership with this huge problem, he just returned the postal orders and said, "No, you can't join this union. Go away." And
was he questioned about that in the inquiry? Because I don't remember.
No, that may come. Mr. Baker's got to come back to give further evidence in another stage, and this may well crop up. But Lee Casterton had got in contact with me much later on in his story, and we had a new general secretary, a bloke called George Thompson. And he was, when he became general secretary, he did so on a ticket that he was not going to be like Colin Baker. He was not going to be a patsy to the post office. And I thought, right, now's the time. We got someone who's going to be a bit more proactive. So I encouraged Lee to try and join again. Lee didn't join. He approached the Federation for legal help because it was within the rules of the union to provide legal assistance to its members if they are in trouble. And to try and make that happen, I took a motion to the Federation's Executive Council and put a motion forward that we should help Lee because he clearly had problems with his Horizon system, and it was highly likely, because of all the things that the Federation was slowly learning, it was highly likely that in his case, Horizon may have been to blame for the problems he'd got into. And I couldn't even get a seconder for that motion. My colleagues on the EP just blanked it. So that's extents that they would go to make sure that they did their bit to keep a lid on people going public with Horizon problems.
Wow.
So it wasn't just the post office keeping a lid on things. It was their own representative body would move heaven and earth to do the same as well.
I've got a picture of a recent National Federation of Sub-Postmasters meeting here. Let's have a quick look at that. Oh, yes, there they are. As portrayed in our play.
If we have time, I've got a couple of questions for Mr. Baker. If we have time.
Yeah, no, Ali. We're all. Is everybody? We've gone over an hour, but if everybody's all right to hang on, a couple more questions would be great.
Yeah.
And I'll give everyone a chance to plug whatever they want before we wrap up. Yeah, George Thompson, by the way, interesting character, does get a mention in our play. I won't say more, but yeah, I think he modelled himself on Bob Hoskins' character from The Long Good Friday. Would probably be a more accurate depiction of how he ran it. Yes, Ali, go on. You've got a couple of questions.
Yeah. So, Mr. Baker, you seem like one of the good guys, one of the Jedis in the Feds in the NFSP. My question is, what percentage of you, how many of you were good in that organization, and how many of you were working for the dark side?
I was, for most of my association with that organization, which lasted 12 years, I would say I was the only one. Mike Rudkin came on board towards the end of his tenureship, but then they got rid of him. So yeah, I was fighting a lone battle amongst a group of people who were scared stiff of upsetting their benefactor, because what people didn't appreciate is during the time that they were registered as a trade union, they didn't have a collective bargaining agreement, so they had no access to a union facilities grant. But the Post Office used to bung them a load of money each year. And clearly, if you're going to get financed in that way, you're beholden to your benefactor. So you're not going to bite the hand that feeds you. So that was my colleague's motivation of not standing up to the Post Office, because it would jeopardize the funding they got, because their membership subscriptions was not enough to keep them going. They needed another 50% of their income to cover their expenses. And so that's where the Post Office money came in. And of course, for the General Secretary, that was his living, because his wages came from the grant that the Post Office supplied. So he had a vested interest in making sure his fellow executives and anyone else in the Federation did as they were told. And when the Post Office asked them to jump, the Federation would ask, well, how high?
And presumably there were some other perks to being on the committee, apart from just a bit of extra money. I'm sure, if you're on that committee, there's going to be some perks, isn't there?
Yeah, you got to meet people within government. You got to meet senior people in the Post Office that you wouldn't normally get to see. You were invariably, it was your branch that would be chosen to road test the latest product, and you got the latest kit, and you got the latest signage, things that other postmasters would have to fight tooth and nail to get. So yeah, there was a lot of fringe benefits, if you like. The Federation would look after their executives quite well. They would never, ever stay in anything less than a 4-star hotel. I just so loved your depiction of them with the pig's noses and everything. I saw that for the first time when I went to see the show, and that's a bit where I had to try and get to the loo, because I nearly wet myself. I just recognized the meetings I used to attend.
But that was as a result of someone I interviewed, and I said, why didn't this National Federation help out when it clearly it wasn't just one voice crying out from the hiding place? There were dozens, and the person's response to me was, because they were pigs who put their noses in the trough for far too long, and they couldn't see past the trough. And I went, that's an interesting idea for a scene.
Well, don't get me wrong. There were people in the outer ranks of the Federation. The people.
We don't depict those.
The regions, the branch secretaries, they were completely unaware of what was going on within the Executive Council. It was at the top end, and even then there was another tier, because you had the Executive Council. They weren't told half the stuff that we used to call the inner sanctum used to get to know about. And they were mainly people that made their way onto the negotiating committee. And the Post Office did not ever like dealing with large numbers. They much preferred dealing with a small group of people, and they could handle 5 people on the negotiating committee. And and they're the ones that really controlled the rest of the federation.
That's interesting. Ali, you had a second question.
Yeah. So I noticed in Nick Wallace's book, he mentions that you get snubbed by Alan Bates. So my question is, what's the beef between you and Alan Bates, and is that still ongoing?
Hot potato, Ali.
Bit of gossip.
I would love to know. I've had this question posed to me by Nick himself, and the only information I can get is that, you know, naturally Alan would detest the Federation. My very first conference was the one Alan Bates attended, where he stood outside and he was lobbying delegates as they went into the conference. He'd already got into the conference hall and arranged for a load of leaflets to be put out on all the delegates' chairs. And it's my first conference. And I was aware that there was a kerfuffle and there was a lot of people chuntering, saying, look at this bloke, just keep away from him. He's a thief. He doesn't know what he's talking about. My mind was focused on my speech I was going to have to make to conference for the first time, my first public speaking engagement. So I was just aware there was a guy outside causing a fuss.
Right.
Thereafter, you know, I can't blame Alan for taking umbrage at me for being part of something he saw as being something that participated in his downfall. But I just wish Alan would sit down and have a coffee with me and we could talk it over, because, you know, I was just not one of the people he thought he was.
Right.
But it must have been terribly humiliating for him to be out there and to have people, you know, if they could spit at him, they probably would have done.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that actually does get a mention in, Ali, it's in one of your speeches when you were handing out.
Yeah.
That gets a mention.
Sound crazy.
Yeah. That gets mentioned in one of your speeches. That there was a bit more about that in the play originally, but I had to cut it down. Well, we have invited Alan to see the show. In fact, I wrote to him personally. I emailed him last year just before the Birmingham production went up. I have not had a reply at all. So that's okay, because we've had huge support from lots of people who came to see the show. They've met me. You know, they know we didn't make any money on the show, and that's not really the motivation for wanting to do it. I've always fought for sort of corners of injustice that I feel strongly about, and that's my way of making a contribution towards social politics in society. That's the way I sort of look at this, and I couldn't be prouder of everybody working on the show. It's a smaller cast than before. In London we had 14, in Birmingham we had 12. It's 10 this time. Production team of 13, including everybody, and everybody's pulling their weight, doing different things behind the scenes. And we've got a couple of the girls have been doing loads of stuff on social media, all this, and putting together the video you just saw, and a whole load of other stuff. And they're all working extremely hard for profit share, which basically means not a lot, maybe enough to buy Gizmo one bag of snacks.
We're probably spending more on travel to the rehearsals than we're actually gonna.
And the money that you're going to get back, I know, which is depressingly true. But you know, I mean,
now we'll be in the West End soon.
Well, yeah, if we get into the West End, that
but he'll cast proper actors, then, won't he?
Well,
no, man, what do you mean proper actors? Who are proper actors? There you, Ali. I'm going to have to dub that out. Dave, you got any other questions before we wrap up? I think we start wrapping up. We could talk for this another hour, but
yeah, my main 2 questions have been answered, so I'm good. Yeah. It's just ongoing forever, isn't it? I mean, there's just hundreds of thousands, as you said, of convictions and different timelines. It's just hard to keep up, to be honest.
Well, I'll leave the last comments to our guests before we sign off. Alid, anything else you want to say? Where can people get the Welsh version of the book at the moment?
Well, you can actually get it on a website called gwales.com. That's accessible to everybody. Otherwise, it's for sale in Welsh language bookshops in Wales.
Do you want to just chuck the link for that if you have it? Do you want to just chuck that into the chat? Or you can put it in the private chat and I'll copy and paste it into the chat so people can see what that is. And I'll try and add it in the blurb down below. And I mean, I'm imagining that the plan is to get the English version of Noel Thomas's story out before the end of the year. Is that a fair comment?
I think that they can get out by sort of September, October.
Just another comment here from Deepak Joshi. Past members of representative are giving morally statements. We all keep faith. Present SFN representative also do ethical moral statements. My God, that's a bit of a word torture for me. Protective for better goodwill. I get the gist of what you're saying, Deepak. And I'm guessing this gentleman is probably also a former sub-postmaster. I think this is a comment from Maria using her husband's account. Can't thank you all enough for giving time and highlighting what we're all going through. Actually, I have to say that the honour is all ours, and we can't thank you enough for letting you, for supporting us and giving us the honour of telling your story, which is just one of the worst I've ever come across. And I've done some pretty difficult topics. So that's the link, is it, Aled, that you've just popped in the chat there for me? Yeah. So anyone who's after the Welsh version of the book, or who would like to learn Welsh, can go to that site and grab hold of the book. Mr. Baker, last word from you.
Well, I'd like to wish you guys all the best for your production. I will try and get to see it. It'll be my second time. I think I'll enjoy it the second time because I was too busy A, being shocked, and B, laughing at the first time round. So yeah, all the best. I just wish it could get a much wider audience. I would, if I had a wish, I'd say everyone in the post office should be made to watch it. And I would like the inquiry team to actually come and see the play, but I don't know whether that would cross the line of impartiality or not. But
I don't think so, because there's nothing in it that they don't already know.
Yeah, true.
I mean, I'm assuming that they've seen unredacted minutes of all the Sparrow Committee meetings, because we certainly have. Ha ha! So you know. But I think they've got access to everything, and I mean, there's stuff coming out all the time. Even now, I'm kind of thinking, oh, you know, perhaps we should add in a scene about that. One immediately came to mind in my head when we were going through this this stream. I've put the link in the chat as we've been talking. The show is on, as you can see on the scrolling thing, 31st of May. Till the 4th of June. We may have news about a second theatre soon in the theatre, another venue, possibly for an extra week. We may have some news about that soon. So keep an eye on the Outcast Facebook page. If you're on Facebook, the Outcast Creative, subscribe to this channel. Of course, there's going to be more of these interviews in the coming weeks. We're going to have more of the cast coming on, talking about their roles. Hopefully, we'll bag a few more postmasters come on and talk to us as well. If not, Mark Kelly, we're just going to have you back. So Mark Kelly, as the postmaster again, who was at the sharp end of this, I'm going to give the last word to you, sir. What would you like to say?
Just to tell all the other survivors of the scandal that this is not the end. We're going to still carry on fighting, and we will get what we deserve, and the people who did this to us will get what they deserve in time.
Fantastic. And I think Nicola Archer's got a word for that. There it is. Just pop that up there.
See you next Tuesday.
Indeed. So listen, thank you so much for giving up your time on a Friday. Dave, I know you'd normally be clubbing it down Canning Town.
Nice to have a rest, you know.
Indeed, and Mark Baker's normally DJing on a Friday night, so it's great that you've all given up these other niceties to come and pop on our channel. So for those people watching, there are going to be more of these specifically about false accounts, and also just exploring other aspects of the scandal and the public inquiry. The public inquiry is going on most days. You can see it if you go onto YouTube and you type in the Horizon Post Office scandal public inquiry, it will come up. You can see Mark Kelly's testimony under the impact statements folder if you want to hear his whole story. Actors watching, if you're looking for a good monologue, just listen to Mark's story and write it out, and that's a pretty powerful speech for you right there. We've also got some industry interviews coming up in the not too distant future. There's one with the first assistant director from all three Back to the Future films, who also worked on Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Mark, that's going to be of interest to you, I'm sure. And we have loads of other stuff in our other realm of things that we put on the channel. I'm on here with film director Matthew Holmes next week, and we're doing a compare and contrast between the films 1492 and Christopher Columbus, The Discovery, and what an awful film that was. So that's going to be fairly entertaining. But in the meantime, the company for the Outcast Creative are going to be working very hard. They're rehearsing 4 days a week from next week, and they're really looking forward to putting on the play. You could not have a company of actors working harder, and they're looking forward also to meeting the postmasters that come down. So if you want to come and see the show, book your tickets now. If you're a lawyer for the post office, don't worry, we're going to be including you in the performance. So thanks very much, guys, for coming on.
Thanks.
And those people watching, thank you for tuning in, your comments and everything. And do spread the word and spread the love about both the production, the Postmasters cause, and the channel. And we'll see you all again real soon.